Lassie meets Roy Rogers. Here are the main characters. Lassie. Lassie is the central character of the story, a brave and exceptionally intelligent collie. Appearance. She has flowing sable and white fur and intelligent, dark eyes. Personality. She is unwaveringly loyal, protective, and possesses an almost human-like understanding of situations. She senses her boy's moods and is driven by an innate instinct to protect him and the family. Role in the story. Lassie acts as the family's guardian and rescuer. She senses danger before humans do, and her courage and quick thinking often save the day. She is Jeff's closest companion and confidant. Jeff Miller. Jeff is Lassie's devoted young owner. He is the heart and conscience of the story. Age. In the TV series and the story, he is a young boy, likely in his early to mid-teens. Personality. He is kind-hearted, sensitive, and deeply attached to Lassie. He is prone to the adventures and misadventures of boyhood, sometimes putting himself in danger, but he is fundamentally good and honest. Role in the story. Jeff is the character the audience relates to. He represents the innocent, sometimes vulnerable, side of the human-animal bond. His reliance on Lassie underscores her importance to the family. Gramps Miller. Jeff's grandfather, he is a figure of wisdom and experience on the farm. Age. He is an older man, with a perspective that comes from a long life. Personality. Gramps is practical, level-headed, and deeply connected to the land. He is a source of guidance for Jeff, but is also shown to have his own moments of doubt and stubbornness, making him a relatable character. Role in the story. Gramps acts as the paternal head of the household. He provides a foundation of stability, and is the voice of reason when problems arise. Ellen Miller. Jeff's widowed mother. She is the emotional anchor of the family. Personality. She is loving, patient, and strong. As a mother, she worries about her son's safety, but also understands his need for independence and adventure. Role in the story. Ellen represents the nurturing and protective side of the family. She grounds the stories in a sense of warmth and emotional reality, often providing comfort after a dangerous situation has been resolved. Roy Rogers. Roy Rogers is a famous cowboy actor and singer who makes a special guest appearance in one of the stories. Appearance. He is described as the King of the Cowboys, wearing his signature Western attire and riding his horse, Trigger. Personality. He is a heroic, friendly, and honorable figure, embodying the values of the classic Western. He is kind to animals and people alike. Role in the story. Roy Rogers serves as a visiting hero. He is instrumental in reuniting Lassie and Jeff after they are separated at his show, highlighting his role as a real-life good guy and adding a touch of celebrity excitement to the narrative. Trigger. Roy Rogers' well-trained horse, Trigger, also makes a brief but memorable appearance. The sun was just beginning to climb over the farm, painting the dew-kissed fields in hues of gold and rose. A buzz of excitement filled the air around the Miller farm, a rare and welcome interruption to the quiet rhythm of rural life. Flyers plastered on the general store, and posts all over Calverton proclaimed the news. Roy Rogers, the King of the Cowboys, was coming to town with his show. For days, Jeff could talk of nothing else. "He's the greatest cowboy who ever lived, Lassie," Jeff told his collie, who sat patiently while he meticulously cleaned his best boots. "Gramps saw him once at the rodeo, and he's got a horse named Trigger that's supposed to be almost as smart as you are." Lassie gave a low, appreciative bark. She didn't have to understand the human words to sense the worry in her boy. "It's no use, girl," Jeff sighed, scratching behind her ears. "He's not come and died." Lassie let out a soft, questioning bark. "Old man Peterson promised, but Gramps said he's probably too busy," Jeff explained, repeating his grandfather's explanation. For weeks, Jeff and his best friend Porky had been planning to build a treehouse in the ancient oak that grew by the stream. Mr. Peterson, the old town carpenter, had promised them some discarded wood, but he'd not shown up yet, and Jeff's patience was wearing thin. Lassie nudged him again, this time with more purpose, and trotted down the steps, looking back as if to say, "Come on, boy, we'll find our own wood." Jeff laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. "All right, Lassie, you win." He grabbed a coil of rope from the shed, and the two set off toward the creek. They spent the morning exploring the woods, kicking through fallen leaves and scouting for suitable lumber. Lassie bounded ahead, her joyful barks echoing through the trees, chasing squirrels up the trunks. But as the day wore on, a dark line of clouds began to gather on the horizon. Jeff was climbing a small hill when a sudden clap of thunder startled him. He slipped on the damp grass, his leg twisting awkwardly beneath him. He cried out in pain, grabbing his ankle. Lassie came running instantly, whining and nuzzling his face. "I'm all right, girl," he said, wincing as he tried to stand. The pain was too sharp, a hot spike in his ankle. He couldn't put any weight on it. He sat back down, leaning against a tree, his face pale. Lassie watched him, her ears low with concern. Another crash of thunder rolled through the valley, and a thick, cold rain began to fall. The creek, which had been a gentle stream this morning, was now a swollen, muddy torrent. Jeff knew he had to get help, but the pain made it impossible to move. Lassie, sensing the urgency, nudged his arm, then glanced toward the farm. "Go on, Lassie," Jeff said, his voice trembling a little. "Go get Gramps. Go home." Lassie didn't hesitate. With one last look at her boy, she took off, a flash of brown and white against the gray, stormy landscape. She raced through the woods, her powerful legs eating up the ground. The rain lashed at her fur, and the wind howled around her, but her purpose was clear. She burst out of the tree line and onto the open field, a silhouette against the churning sky. Back at the farm, Gramps and Ellen were preparing for the storm, bringing in the last of the chickens. Lassie, covered in mud and soaking wet, burst into the yard, barking frantically. She raced to Gramps, yelping and looking back toward the creek. "What is it, girl?" Gramps said, his voice full of concern. "What's wrong?" Lassie barked again, a low, desperate cry. She ran a few feet toward the woods, then turned back, waiting. Her message was as clear as any human words. Gramps followed her, Ellen right behind him. Lassie led them along the winding creek, her sure paws navigating the treacherous, muddy bank. They found Jeff just as the storm broke in full fury, huddled miserably under the tree. Gramps carefully helped Jeff up, supporting him as they made their slow way back to the farmhouse. Lassie trotted protectively alongside them, her mission accomplished. The day of the show dawned bright and clear, the perfect California afternoon. The town fairgrounds were transformed into a bustling carnival of Western wear, lemonade stands, and music. Gramps, Ellen, Jeff, and Lassie made their way through the crowd, Jeff's eyes wide with wonder at the sights and sounds. The air smelled of popcorn and dust, and the happy chatter of the crowd was a joyous din. Jeff, clutching Lassie's leash tightly, insisted on getting as close to the stage as possible. As Roy Rogers rode out on Trigger, a cheer erupted from the crowd. Roy, with his guitar and his signature smile, was everything Jeff had imagined and more. Lost in the spectacle, Jeff didn't notice a commotion near the stage. A young boy in a bright red hat, eager to get a closer look at the King of the Cowboys, stumbled backward, sending a cascade of soda bottles tumbling from a nearby vendor's table. The noise and the sudden confusion caused Lassie, tethered by her leash, to instinctively jump back, yanking the leash from Jeff's hand. In the crush of the crowd, the golden-eyed collie was quickly separated from her boy, disappearing into the sea of people. Jeff, turning just a moment too late, saw only her retreating form. "Lassie!" he cried out, his voice lost in the clamor of the crowd's applause for Roy Rogers. A sense of panic welled up in Jeff. He pushed his way through the crowd, calling her name, but it was no use. The show ended, and the crowd began to disperse, but there was no sign of the valiant collie. Heartbroken and scared, Jeff finally returned to his family, his face etched with sorrow. Ellen and Gramps tried to reassure him, but Jeff was inconsolable. Backstage, Roy Rogers was saying goodbye to some of the local dignitaries when he noticed a beautifully groomed collie sitting patiently by the stage door. She had a kind, intelligent face and was clearly lost, but she didn't seem afraid. She was Lassie, of course. "Well now, where did you come from?" Roy said softly, walking over to her. "You seem to have lost your way, girl." Lassie whined softly and nudged his hand. Roy, a lifelong animal lover, knelt down and inspected her collar. It was a simple leather one with a tag that read, "Lassie, Miller Farm, Calverton." "Miller Farm, is it?" Roy said with a smile. "Looks like you and I have some business to attend to." The next morning, the Miller family was having a somber breakfast. Jeff was too sad to eat. There was a knock on the door, and Gramps went to answer it. To his astonishment, he found himself face to face with none other than Roy Rogers, Trigger standing patiently beside him. "I believe this belongs to you," Roy said, gesturing toward Lassie, who stood proudly next to Trigger. Jeff, who had rushed to the door at the sound of Lassie's familiar bark, let out a joyful cry. He threw his arms around Lassie, burying his face in her fur. "Roy Rogers!" Jeff gasped, stepping back. You brought her home?" "Yep," Roy said with a friendly wink. "Found her waiting for me after the show. Smartest dog I've ever met. Figured she had a pretty special owner, too." Jeff was speechless. He simply held Lassie close, a tear of relief rolling down his cheek. Roy took a moment to chat with the family, sharing stories about his horse, Trigger, and complimenting the Miller farm. Before long, he climbed back on Trigger and tipped his hat. "Well, I'd better be on my way," he said. "Happy trails to you folks." As Roy Rogers and Trigger rode off down the dusty road, Jeff watched him go, feeling like the luckiest boy in the world. He had his dog back, and he'd met the king of the cowboys. As for Lassie, she was just happy to be home with her boy, her tail wagging with a triumphant rhythm. It was a day neither of them would ever forget. As they reached the porch, Jeff looked down at his loyal dog, and his earlier sadness was gone, replaced by a profound gratitude. Inside, wrapped in a blanket by the roaring fire, Jeff gave Lassie a long, warm hug. "Good girl," he whispered into her fur. "My good girl." Lassie licked his face, her tail thumping a steady rhythm against the floor. For a boy and his dog, sometimes the best adventures are the ones that end right back at home.